people on my phone, welcome back to another reading vlog. Yet again, I just started reading books and forgot to film an intro, so I've actually finished all 4 of the books I read in this vlog. The theme of this week's reading vlog is gifted books, so these books have either been sent to me by publishing houses or the authors. I'm so incredibly grateful to be sent these books. It's such an exciting experience and I feel so lucky. And I'm gonna stop talking. So let's just get started with the first book. Pitted by Ian McCleary was about 20 pages long, so I have already finished it. I ended up rating this book about 2 stars. I received this through NetGalley, but it was published in April of this year. When I saw this on NetGalley, I requested to read it because it has such an interesting cover and the title, and I thought it would have something to do with like domestic grounding and the idea of, I don't want to go as far as saying cannibalism, but something deeply rooted in generational overcoming of something. The synopsis of the book is it's a young girl called Alice who is our protagonist, and she's writing a list of everything that her mother tells her not to do. So this book really then navigates the struggles of this mother-daughter relationship and also this adolescent turmoil and tension with the self. I also think it was really good at looking at this youthful curation of proof of existence. I think that young people are, especially in our contemporary media, focused on capturing their existence, and in the mindset of a young person there's also this emphasis on self-indulging in the negative perspective of yourself. So I do think that this short story has a very good tone. It's very abrupt in the way that it talks, but in a good way. It really fits this teenage perspective. That being said, I do wish it was longer. I don't think that these 20 pages felt like enough for kind of excavating this mother-daughter relationship. There was no real exploration of the physical manifestations of the conflict between the mother-daughter, and also there wasn't much of an explanation regarding the psyche and how psychologically this tension and this forced stagnancy is not really explained, how this has an impact on Alice. And also throughout I noticed this very frequent mention that Alice has to take on this maternal, motherly identity for her younger brother, but in all of the reviews, I say all of the 70 reviews that are on Goodreads, no one really mentioned this, but I thought it was really weird. I think that all of these things could have been explored and then it would have been a bit more interesting and have a bit more depth. That being said, I do think that the botanical horror and magical realism elements of this book were very engaging. Just overall, thematically, conceptually, this was a really interesting short story, but some of the different elements that I've discussed could have been explored in greater depth. I'm not quite sure what book I'm going to move on to next. I don't know if I'm going to get any reading done today. I'm going to go on a solo reading date tomorrow. I'm currently on page 44 of Through the Fire. This one was gifted to me by Printemps Editions. This book was gifted to me by Printemps Editions, who is the publisher. They invited me back in April, I think, to London for this book event, for a book launch of Nobody Knows Anybody by Katrina Gombokche, but posted on their story about this book, and I replied and said that it looked amazing and had really beautiful prose, and they offered to send me a copy. It's interesting because this is autobiographical. It's written about his life receiving a cancer diagnosis in the COVID lockdown. So far it's been discussing a lot the idea of living in the sidelines, living in the margins, both of life itself, but also because he teaches English. It's always interesting to me when books centre around a person that is so entirely navigated by their involvement with literature. I think that there are so many tragic comparisons when someone is navigating their life through their understanding of literature, and then something that would be an archetype or an expected plot development happens to them. It just feels very full circle. It progresses between different tenses. It goes and fluctuates between different points in time as well, which can get a bit confusing. But when he's talking about himself, he kind of fluctuates between past tense, present tense, future tense, and discusses what all of these different things mean to him at that moment. I'm going to go now and read the last 100 pages of this. In the end, I rated this 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed reading Through the Fire. I think it was a really good mix of this very autobiographical tone and living someone's life, but still quite, not inspiring, but intentional. The writing is so observant onto the minute details of what makes a human. Because of this, then it looks thematically at grief and nostalgia and how these different things can interweave and make someone's identity, and also then how much of your identity you place on your past existence and what you will be remembered for and what you remember yourself for. I can definitely think of some people that I would recommend this book to, and I think I'm going to write a full review and post it on my socials. And then I know what my next book is going to be. I'm going to a cafe tomorrow for another solo reading date, because apparently that's all that I do now. But of course I'll vlog it on my socials. I meant to film my thoughts on Dark as the Morning as soon as I left the cafe. A combination of anxiety, iron deficiency, 35-degree heat, and genuine overstimulation just kind of all hit me on top of being ill. However, I'm currently on page 204, so I've only got about 30 pages left. I'm finding the style of this slightly similar to Last Summer in the City by Gianfranco Kligric. It's a very volatile, intense story. The synopsis of this book is about a man called Gino, and he meets this woman called Franca when he's a child. Then they kind of rekindle their relationship when they're in their late 20s, have a kid together, get married, and they just live this lovely life, I think in the Italian countryside. But Gino is dealing with a lot of basically repressed daddy issues, and he really struggles with the idea of masculinity. A lot of the men are kind of fighting for their identity and what their identity means in the perception of other men. Given that there are only about 30 pages left, I'm interested in how this plot is going to go. Also, this book was gifted to me by Bloomsbury. It's the first book that I got in the Bloomsbury Creator Circle, which is very exciting. Also, I think that one of my lecturers knows Rupert Thompson, because I was looking at his Instagram the other day and they had like a talk or something together. So I might email my lecturer once I finished reading this and just say, hey, like, how was he as a person? Can you give me any insight? Can you get me a signed copy? But I'd be quite interested because they both follow the idea of masculinity in the progression from like childhood and growing up, but my lecturer's book less so. I have a full review of his book on my Instagram if you're interested, and you should be because it was quite good. But yeah, I'm gonna go and finish the last 30 pages of Dark is the Morning, and then I'll get back to you with my thoughts. I finished reading Dark is the Morning. It's like 11 p.m. and I'm so tired. I'd give this maybe 3 stars. I think it has a really good plot, but the plot wasn't grounded as much as I wanted it to be. There were a lot of references to Gino's like tumultuous adolescence, but we don't really see that. We see references and we see him as a kid being a bit ignorant, and then we see him as an adult and this very, again, tumultuous journey filled with all this turmoil and jealousy and tension. Regardless, it was a good book. I don't really have enough thoughts right now to share them properly. I'll maybe write up a full review at some point for Instagram. Also finished reading another book that was gifted to me on my Kindle. It's called The Infinitely Big and the Infinitely Small. It was very interesting. It was very short. It was about 48 pages on my Kindle. It had such an interesting premise. Like, the very first page, it's a point, like our protagonist is a point, like a full stop. And it's talking about growing up and saying everyone around me was so pointless. And as it's going through, there's a lot of really interesting narrative stylistic things. Like it realizes, or it goes through this journey to find the point of life. So it's going through to find 1 and 2 because point is 0. And when it discovers 2, instead of saying I in the narrative voice, it says I, like the 2 I's for 2, like Roman numerals. I thought that was so cool. I will say though, the formatting on this was so difficult to read on my Kindle because every single page was double paged. So I'm reading on this screen, but the book is like this, split in half, and it was such a tiny font and I couldn't zoom in without missing half of it. But it's also got really cool graphics on all of the pages, which made it really quite engaging. I love when books have strange graphics and page breaks and everything. It reminds me of Experiments in Imagining Otherwise by Lola Olufemi. I think I would give that one 2.5 stars. I think it was humorous and it was quite interesting, but it didn't have intense characterization or like a plot. Like it was so short. It was short in terms of the fact that like you can't really expand what it was. And obviously I didn't get any clips of me reading it because it was short and I just read it in one sitting. Of course, in finishing these books, it means that I am now finishing this reading vlog. Of course, I'm so incredibly grateful to all of the authors or the publishing houses for sending me these books. I always feel so lucky when someone reaches out to me or I win something and I get sent a book. It's such like a gratifying experience and I'm so lucky to have this platform to talk about books. It is truly the most exciting thing for me, especially at the moment. I'm having so much fun with my content, so I hope that is coming across. And of course I wouldn't be able to do any of this without people watching, so thank you so much, and thank you for watching this video in particular because I'm filming it now. I will see you in my next reading vlog or my next vlog.